Hello, my name is Claire Poppy, and today I have the honor of introducing you to a truly amazing and intriguing man named Joe Petroski. I am so excited to introduce Joe to you all, along with his amazing gift of healing. I personally met Joe about 3 years ago when I was very sick with an illness that was devastating for me and my family. Thankfully, through the meeting, I have experienced complete healing, and my life has been changed and touched in ways I could never have imagined possible. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Joe Petroski. Hello, Joe.
Hi, thank you.
Yes. Joe, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to talk with me today and answer some questions that I believe a lot of people may have about you and your work as an intuitive medical and energy healer.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes. Okay, so I know this is a very complex question, but can you briefly explain what a medical intuitive or energy healer is?
Well, the gift that I've been given, the talent that I've been given, is that I can actually look at a person, and as I go and sit in silence, I can actually see and hear and feel what the client's going through. And as I pay attention to their body, I notice and I see things that the gift of God comes through me, and I can see what's happening. And so I've worked with Christians, Buddhists, Jewish people, any religion whatsoever. So people think, is it faith healing? It's no. I can actually see, I can sense, and I can feel. And as I do that, as I pay attention, the client's body changes. And so the healing is with the client. I just pay attention, their body comes to the space, and the healing happens.
Awesome. Well, how and when did you become a medical intuitive healer?
Well, Claire, I went through my own illness back in 2001. About a year and a half before that, the doctors actually gave me less than a year to live. And I was on oxygen for almost 2 years. And I had this illness that the doctors had battled for over 6.5 years. And there was nothing that they could do. I just got sicker and sicker, and I was emaciated. I was on oxygen. They sent me home to die. And I met this fella, and after going to him for the second 1 hour, actually to his students, for the second 1 hour session, I was off the oxygen. And after the third hour session, I was completely free. I was absolutely perfect health. And during that time, he looked at me and said, well, you can do this too. And I looked at him and I'm like, okay, I fix houses. And I looked at this fella, and he was a Shaolin master, he was a quantum physics engineer, a chiropractor, a homeopathic practitioner, and he studied naturopathy. And I felt completely not of his caliber. But he assured me that I could do this, and he actually set me up with a mentor in Minneapolis, where I used to live. And I trained for, goodness sakes, 3.5 years, every single Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday that I could. And then the total training was for about 5.5 years. And so that's when I learned some of it. And then after that, I actually had the wonderful opportunity to sit with some Native Americans, and they opened me up to even more. They brought in the spiritual component, because my first teacher wasn't spiritual whatsoever. And when I sat with the Native Americans, they talked to me and let me see a view as they saw what Creator felt and saw. And so as I sat and got in touch with that, it was like a cornucopia. Things opened that I couldn't even imagine, and I could see and feel in people instantaneously. And so since then, I've studied it, and I've made it my life, and I enjoy it. I've studied the science behind it. I've had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Bruce Lipton. I've spent many hours with Dr. Dean Rodden, and I've met with other healers, other energy practitioners, doctors, all walks, and it's been fascinating.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, what types of conditions or health challenges can you help people with, Joe?
It really depends. This is one wonderful technique. It's not the technique. It's not the only technique. In fact, today while I was working with a client that I'm encouraging to continue using the chemotherapy. He's doing that, and I said, let's continue that. Let's check out the next SPECT scan and see what it is, and we'll see if the tumor is actually gone, because I work with people that have all kinds of different illnesses, illnesses that I've never heard of, and I go, I take the time, I take the moment, and I ask Spirit, that's my word for God, and like I say, I don't impose my religion on anybody, but I just ask, I know where my gift comes from, And I just ask, it's like, okay, can I help? Is it in this person's highest good to work with them? Is it my highest good to work with them? And I can feel the answer and I can see. And sometimes I refer people to other people. Sometimes I work with them right away. And so I work with people with illnesses that I can't even remember, illnesses with crazy, crazy names. And every single thing is energy. Everything is energy. So it's limited by nothing in some ways, but in other ways it's limited by everything. It's really up to the client, what they think, what they feel, and everybody has their path, everybody has their time. So it can work if it's meant to, but like I say, there's times where I feel and know that I need to tell somebody, go get this type of work, go to this person, but otherwise, virtually any illness.
Okay, so, whether someone has cancer or whether their knee has been hurting them for a while, and either of those people could call you and you would help them.
Exactly.
If it came to you.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I tell people when they call me. I say, I tell them what I do, how I work, and then I tell them, hey, do what you do. Whether that's think about it, meditate about it, ask your gut, pray, whatever it is. Think about it and see what it feels. If it feels right to work with me, then yes, let's work. And sorry, there was some background noise here. I got distracted. Can you repeat the last part of what you had said?
I was just saying how anywhere from someone with cancer to someone with a knee, knee that has been hurting them for a couple weeks.
And that's the thing that what it is I love it when people know that they absolutely need a surgery to get healthy. It's like, okay, hold on a second. Come to me first. And because very, very often I can help people that have back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, people that have been told that they need to have a joint replaced. We can work, and it's like, okay, if we can work and we can get rid of your pain, okay, so you have zero pain and you have 100% range of motion, why on earth would you go underneath the knife? And so I tell people, it's like, hey, try it first. However, if people have had the surgery and the surgery did not work, okay, well, we can fix that too. So.
Yeah. Well, I know even personally with me, I had holes in my intestines, and Joe completely fixed my intestines, and now I eat whatever I want, and I'm perfectly healthy. So
yeah, exactly.
Good job.
Yeah, and that's the thing where it's like I don't really care about the diagnosis. As a medical intuitive, there are some medical intuitives that want to know the diagnosis or even tell you the diagnosis, and I don't care about that. Sometimes it's helpful to know. More importantly, I need to know. It's like, okay, what are the symptoms? Like you found out from the doctors you had intestinal permeability, and that was something I could see right away, and I could see. And that's something where I tell people sometimes I see it like it's a dissection, where I can see right inside the intestines. I can see what it's looking like, or inside the heart. I can see what it's looking like. Sometimes, or I can tell them, what the pain is sometimes. I mean, it really varies. But it's a fabulous and it's a wonderful science. It's amazing.
Yes. So, Joe, do you have to be with a client in person to have a session with them, or how does that work?
No. Today I was with somebody in Monaco. I was with somebody in Beverly Hills. I was with another person in Monaco, Wisconsin, Minnesota, all kinds of different places. Actually here in Florida. So I tell people it's like if you and I were in person, and if I touched your hand at the level of the atom, if we were under the atomic microscope, there would be no way to see where your hand ends and mine begins. So if we're in person and there's no way to distinguish where you end and I begin, then you're in Minnesota, I'm in Florida, I still can sense and feel that same energy as if we were touching.
So you could talk to a client like through the phone, and I know you and I talk through the phone all the time, considering we are halfway across the country from each other, but so you can do phone, you could do Skype, you could really do anything.
Yeah, and people ask me about Skype, and it's like, well, I'll do Skype with the phone, but what ends up happening is if people actually do Skype with the video and they see me, they start to look and it's like, oh, okay, in fact, today is a bad shave day. It was the first day of high school, and so I was having to get my daughter out, and I'd already begun work, and so I looked poorly shaven. But people will look at that. They'll look at the background with the wood. They'll try and figure out, and so instead of just releasing and letting go, they concentrate on the visual. And so I would rather have them look out the window, because if they're in the office, I tell them the same thing. I says, look out the window. And I says, you don't want to sit and stare at me, And so I'll do Skype just for the phone. I don't enjoy the video aspect because I know that it's better for them to not concentrate on me.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So while you are working with a client, I know you kind of touched on this before, but how do you receive the information you get? For example, if someone has a knee pain, do you see a bunch of small energy atoms or dots that make up our bodies, and then the knee area is a color? Or do you see the word knee pop up in your head? Or does it come to you as a thought or an idea or like an actual image? Or what do you actually see when you work?
All of it, none of it. All of it, none of it. It really depends. There's times where when somebody, for example, there was a football player, John Williams. He's one of my testimonials on YouTube. When John called me up, he never told me that he had heart issues, okay? And as I was working on him, there was all kinds of heart things, emotional things that came up. And he talks about this briefly in his testimonial. But when I was working on John, he had issues with his knee, his hip, shoulder, and his elbow, I think it was. And I could see the things in his knee and his hip and his shoulder. His elbow didn't really register. There wasn't a picture with it. But with his elbow, I could feel the stuff. And when I looked in my mind's eye, it kind of seemed almost like broken glass, I guess, kind of. I mean, that's kind of what it looked like and felt to me. And so in his elbow, that's what I saw. But in the rest, I could see the different things. I could see there was bone on bone. I could see there was etching in the bone, from the years of deterioration and stuff. But at the end, like John says, there was no pain. So, and with yourself, I could see the intestinal permeability. I could see that. I could see how, as I described in the CNME, where you call them cilia or diverticuli, the appendix, the things inside the intestine. I can see how they look, and it really depends. What I do is I set out the prayer and the intention privately within my own head, my own thought, to see what I need to see, hear what I need to hear, feel what I need to feel, and then only say the words the client needs to hear. Because if we're working and you don't need to hear about it, then I shouldn't bring it up. And so it's a variety of it. I should say things, people, sometimes they'll call up and they'll say, I have a knee problem. And, I'll be guided to some other part of the body. And I'll say, well, what about your neck? What about your back? Well, yeah, my neck is really hurting and everything like that, but I'm more concerned about my knee. Well, what will happen is the body will call me to work where it wants to work first, okay? And then, as a side effect of that, their knee will also get better. So in the conversation, people will have multiple parts of their body recover, not just one or two.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I've experienced that for sure. I know the answer to this question, Joe, but do your clients feel anything during a session with you? Or, would it ever hurt? Or what is the feeling like?
It depends. I had a plumber come in once, and he was actually in a motorcycle accident, and for 7 years he was in grotesque pain, unbelievable pain. And when it was really, really bad pain, his wife would have to give him a shot of Demerol or something like that. Pretty sure it was Demerol, when the pain got really, really bad. Well, when he came in, we were face-to-face, and he was about 12 feet away from me in the office, and he didn't feel a single thing. He was really, he says, are you going to do anything? I says, I am working. And, he was kind of upset because he didn't feel anything, didn't notice anything, but he was also very, very staunch and very, kind of guarded and, maybe macho. And so he was very, really on guard. But anyways, about 45 minutes into it, all of a sudden he looked and he was just looking around trying to figure out, okay, there's the chair, I'm sitting there, he's sitting, on the other one. It's like, how on earth, he thought for sure that I somehow jumped across the room and did something because all of a sudden he was completely pain-free. Other people will feel tingling, feel warmth. The last client that I had today, she didn't feel a single thing. She didn't feel she didn't feel warmth, she didn't feel tingling. But I said, okay, now how is your hip doing and how's your knee doing? And she goes, they're about 50% better. And I says, yeah. And I says, okay, and how are you feeling emotionally? She says, I feel so calm. And she had been really strung out before that. And so, but she didn't feel any precursors to that until the pain started to go away. But she did notice during the entire conversation that she started to become much, much more calm and much, much more focused.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. So after a client has had a session or two with you, or however many they need, how do they maintain the work you have done for them? Is everything just healed and then they go on living normally, or do they need to kind of do things to maintain the work that you've done?
It really depends. Many clients are, if it's back issues, heart issues, knee issues, things like that, migraines, bing, bang, boom, they're done. Okay, that's it. They're done. They don't need to do anything else. Okay. Other times there might be some emotional issues behind it. If there's emotional issues behind it, it's like, well, okay, then we got to do something about it. And that's why I created True Freedom U. And because what I would do is I would sit and I would work with clients, and they might come to me 3 months later for a different issue, or maybe the same issue, or 3 years later, or 4 years later. And I would see them, and I'm like, these are really, really wonderful people, yet they're still really not as great off as I think that they can, because I can see, I've known people that are so extraordinarily affected with energy healing that their lives are completely changed. And so I set out last year for over 7 months of prayer and meditation to find a new way to work with people. And so, because, in fact, I think what we can do is we can end this one here. I'll wrap it up, and then we can do another one about True Freedom U. I mean, does that make sense for you, or you're the interviewer? I don't want to tell.
Yeah, no, that's fine. My last question was just, how can someone set up a session with you? How would someone go about contacting you?
The easiest way is phone. They can call 651-755-6027. Again, 651-755-6027. And only call during Eastern Standard Hours from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, because it is currently the phone that I'm using for personal use as well. That's about to change. But if they call any earlier or later than that, they'll wake me up. So that wouldn't. But otherwise, email joe@truefreedom.com, and then they can set out their questions, and I can answer their questions, because I want the people to be informed before we make the appointment. I want them to know what I do, how I do it, and if it's really a fit. And sometimes people know because, like you, when your mother had met Regina at the store, Regina talked to her and said, hey, and so your mom just knew. But, I mean, your mom did. Actually, I think your mom and your dad interviewed me before we met. And so it's important to feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for your time today, Joe. I encourage all of you watching this to give Joe a call if needed, or spread the word about him to anyone you know in need. Joe Petroski gave me my life back. He can change yours too.
Thanks, Claire. I appreciate it. And in the next video, we'll talk about the True Freedom U. That'll be cool.
Yes, sounds good.
Okay.
See you then.